All right, it is 2 o'clock. So I'm gonna go ahead and put our owl on mute just so that it doesn't pick up and confuse people. But I will unmute if folks have questions, so just let me know. And I will pass it over. I believe Amber speaking first from USDA. So thanks for coming, y'all.
Buju Gakana Aviya, Miskogi Jugukwe, Indigenous, Jaganashi Moen, Magazine and Dudame, Odawazaga Igning and Dunjaba. Hello, everyone. My Ojibwe name is Red Sky Woman. My English name is Amber Marlowe. I'm from the Eagle Clan and from Lakoutere, which is in Northwest Wisconsin. I currently reside and am presenting today from Minnesota. I was really hoping that me and Yvette would be there in person with you. But really happy to be able to participate virtually, and hopefully we can have a really great conversation today. So my role with the Agricultural Marketing Service is the Tribal Outreach Coordinator. So I specifically support the National Intertribal Food Business Center, which is part of the Regional Food Business Center program in the Local and Regional Foods Division of AMS. So that's a mouthful. I've been here just a little over a year. And prior to that, I've spent over 20 years working with various tribes on food systems development, and then working specifically with tribal colleges, and just really happy to be here. And I'll turn it over to my colleague for introductions.
Hello, everyone. My name is Yvette Garcia. Like Amber said, we wish we could be there with you all in person, but we're happy that we can at least make it here virtually. I'm currently in Washington, D.C. I have been with the Agricultural Marketing Service in the Local and Regional Foods Division for 5 years now. I'm an agricultural marketing specialist, and so my role is a bit more broad than Amber's, and I worked previously doing research, and now I do outreach and technical assistance, and kind of throughout my work specializing in doing outreach for grants and making our LAMP grants and other AMS grants as accessible to people as possible. And so with that, I'll leave it to Amber to get this going.
Perfect. Thank you. So we are, again, with USDA, we're going to go dive right into the alphabet soup that started here. But really, we are here today to talk about the regional food business centers, specifically the Business Builder program, and then within the Agricultural Marketing Service, what are some of those local agricultural marketing program grants that are available to really allow you to look at different ways that you can fund your local food system. So we're going to explain these programs in greater detail as we proceed throughout the presentation. And just to give you a little bit of background on the Agricultural Marketing Service. So again, one of the mission areas of USDA, one of the smaller mission areas, but really the Agricultural Marketing Service administers programs that create domestic and international marketing opportunities for U.S. producers of food, fiber, and specialty crops. And AMS also provides the agricultural industry with valuable services to ensure the quality and availability of wholesome food for consumers across the country. Next slide, please. So we've really organized this presentation into kind of 3 key areas. So we're going to discuss the regional food business centers, and then with that, kind of what those business builder capacity awards look like. And my apologies if you were in the panel discussion this morning. This will be a little bit of a review, but hopefully you'll still learn something new. And then Yvette, we will switch over, and Yvette will talk about the LAMP grant opportunities, and then specifically with and for LAMP, kind of what the technical assistance resources are that are available to you. She's going to review some of the LAMP data for Alaska, specifically from 2020 to 2024, and then kind of look at what are some resources and research, again, that's available to you as you might prepare future applications. Next slide, please. So the regional food business centers, they are or were created to really support a more resilient and competitive food system by providing localized assistance to access local and regional supply chains, including linking the producers to wholesalers and distributors. So really the centers are focused on working with small and mid-sized farms and food businesses to create new and better market opportunities. So really, when we think of the food supply chain, we're looking at those activities that are post-production. And so looking again at processing, aggregation, distribution, marketing, branding, things like that, that are considered allowable for this program. Next slide. So what are the regional food business centers? Well, they are, so there was a request for applications put out in 2022, and different organizations across the country submitted applications, kind of looking at what were the geographic areas that they kind of thought was their regions, worked with AMS to kind of update them a little bit. And then these 11 regional centers were created with one national center. And the national center does serve tribes and Indian country across the country. So really the centers worked within themselves to create kind of a regional network led by a lead organization. And then they have key partners that do various aspects of the work, technical assistance, coordination, assisting with that business builder program. But really, how are they working to develop those relationships that will last beyond the funding of this program? So really leaning into how they're building their communities to really look at long-term change and sustainability for the food supply chains that they're currently working on. So within that, the funding was authorized by the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021. So under this funding, it was really looked at to how do we provide support to agricultural producers, growers, processors that have been impacted by the coronavirus, and specifically looking at how do we see those bottlenecks in that kind of middle of the supply chain, and how could these centers effectuate and help with some of those gaps, and how can they really see a flourish of activity and economic development based on that. So one of the key things too is that the regional food business centers is a cooperative agreement with the lead institution. So it's not a grant. So that means that for the agricultural marketing service, that we do have substantial involvement into assisting the center with different buckets of work that they're working on. So how do we be a thought partner with them to look at what other resources do you need within USDA? How can we be resource prospectors to, if you're working with beneficiaries that need assistance with reaching out and looking at, are they unsure of what an EQIP grant is, and how do we connect them with Natural Resource Conservation Service? How do we connect them with Farm Service Agency if they're interested in a different type of loan? So really looking at how can we be complementary to work with the centers on what some of their needs are and what they're working through. Other things that we do is kind of help review different implementation plans for different funding and sources, and assist with learning opportunities. So we help facilitate working groups and community of practices to really share best practices among the centers, and really look at how they collectively can overcome barriers together. So the timeline for the centers is that these cooperative agreements are for 4 to 5 years. Cooperative agreements do allow for that flexibility to respond. So if there's changes to the region and the needs and opportunities that they're seeing, that we have some flexibility throughout the course of the program to make modifications as needed. And really, when it comes down to it, the regionality of it is so important to have that kind of approach. So when we look at our regional approach, we're looking at rural, remote, urban areas, and it includes food and farm businesses of all different sizes. And so again, we know that those organizations doing the work on the ground, they're best equipped to design the solutions that do work for their regions and their communities. Next slide, please. So I talked a little bit about that geographic component, and this is kind of how the framework for the regions came about. So again, there's those 11 regional centers and then the one national intertribal center. So again, serving tribes across the country. And you can see too that the regions themselves, there's some overlap that some states do share with other centers, that just because they are considered to be in that region and doing a lot of work in that region. So they do collaborate together as well to serve different states. Next slide, please. So really when we look at, and again, we talked about the program goals of really being about creating new and back. Oh, I skipped a slide, sorry. Okay, sorry. So when we look at the 3 buckets, I apologize for that. I thought we were on a different slide. When we look at the 3 buckets of what the responsibilities are for the centers, let's really talk about what coordination looks like. So really it's about connecting the beneficiaries with the resources and support to achieve what their vision of success looks like. It can be collaborating on research and data collection. It can be, we looked at, so each center submits a performance progress report every 6 months of the project. So through December of 2024, if we look at aggregately of all the centers, they have launched over 2,600 new partnerships or collaborations in that time frame. And of that too, there's been 466 specific partnerships that were formalized with written agreements. So part of that partnership and coordination also kind of looks like, well, what are they doing on the ground? And it's really kind of leveraging knowledge of the steering committees. They're establishing advisory councils. They're hiring technical assistance providers, really looking at how they're creating programs to address the regional challenges. And again, too, just like in Alaska Food Policy Council, bringing partners together by hosting conferences and different events. And the second bucket there is the technical assistance. And that really, again, to each center means a little something different. They're doing different activities, but really that it's driven that they're providing that support to small and mid-sized food businesses. So again, collectively, the centers have reported working with 558 technical assistance providers, and that of that services that have been provided, over 5,000 businesses have been served, and over 8,000 individuals have been trained or received technical assistance to date. So some of that technical assistance is one-on-one training or guidance, it's group work, it's peer-to-peer support, and some of the topics really looking at how to access new market opportunities. So is that direct to consumer? Is it wholesale, institutions? Really looking at strategies to improve food processing, distribution, storage, identifying different funding structures and financing opportunities, doing a lot of work with community development financial institutions, developing and implementing marketing strategies, value-added production. So then the list goes on. And again, each of that is unique to each center. And then that third and final bucket of the capacity building is really looking at the centers as how are they re-granting funds for that direct investment to farm and food businesses. And so that Business Builder Subaward program really focuses on how are those emerging regional needs, how do they have the ability to create and propose those subawards of kind of like what's driving their region, and what that program looks like. So some of them have competitive award processes, some have non-competitive, some have a combination. And so really AMS has worked with each center and reviewed those plans, and all of that happens before those sub-award programs actually launch. And just with the uniqueness of each center, those timelines are different. Some are just doing like 2 award processes. Some are awarding funds on a rolling basis. Some have it every year. So again, it's really unique to the center, and that you can reach or find all that information on the USDA AMS website, and the centers themselves have their own websites too. Next slide, please. And so we'll just kind of talk a little bit more about that importance of what, why is it so important for that regional approach? And really, again, just like you're in Kodiak right now, talking about, what have been some of the challenges and barriers, and that differs depending on what region of the country we're in. And so really looking at how can this program, this project, look at those different landscapes to really, dive into what makes the most sense for those regions, and how they really have a regional approach to better economic development, to addressing the supply chain challenges, to looking at what are those things that they can do on the ground to better support their region. So really looking at how that all coordinates together and drives the economic opportunity and creates, a more competitive and resilient food system. Next slide, please. So just some examples. So again, based from in Alaska, the centers that would be pertinent, again, are the islands and remote areas. And so again, you've heard probably a lot throughout the conference, and such a great center and work that they're doing. And really, their top priorities are to look at how they're promoting local market opportunities in local food production by looking at how they're strengthening farms, food hubs, and food hub networks. And then looking at how they're working on expansion and development of those farms and food hubs, and having all of that, the technical assistance that they're providing, and looking at how they're really focused on long-term sustainability for like what comes after the funding for these centers. Next slide, please. And again, so for tribal food farm businesses located in Alaska, you'd also have the option to access the National Intertribal Food Business Center. And again, top priorities of the center are to distribute a large percentage of their funds is going to Business Builder Awards. Again, that's a non-competitive process, and that the farmer food business must attend a technical assistance activity. And I know that being at the conference is one that is eligible. There's others, and that you really want to connect with the center to look at what those ones are that are coming up. But really too, they're looking at expanding technical assistance capacity to include looking at how they help with funding applications, how they're looking at that marketing, branding, packaging, and they've done a lot of work to build a needs assessment with one of their partners, Indigenous Food and Agricultural Initiative, to kind of across the country do a scan to see, what are the needs, the current needs right now, and how can the center best meet those needs. So that data is coming soon, and again, we'll kind of inform as they go forward what that technical assistance looks like. Next slide, please. So again, those Business Builder Awards, funding small and mid-sized farm and food businesses. It's really looking at capacity building. The centers have really driven what that looks like as far as what priority areas and what eligibility criteria that they have. And the maximum award amount for each farmer food businesses is $100,000. And that's directly to one business that has a UEI, or unique entity identifier. And that can also be collective. So if you access funds from one center to say you've requested $50,000, you could go to another center that you're eligible for. And again, that max award can only be $100,000. Next slide, please. So again, this is the kind of the application process is to really work with the center that you're eligible for or working with, and they have their own deadlines and what that eligibility criteria look like. Some of those programs, they do require you to have a TA prerequisite, and really I just encourage you to check with your center, check with the region that you're looking to work with, to see what those program deadlines are and what those eligibility details are. And next slide. And I'll turn it over to Yvette.
Thank you, Amber. Even if this material has already been covered, I know it's immensely helpful for people to learn and hear about our regional food business centers and business builder awards. We want as many people to access these funds as possible. So please look into that. Next, we'll be going into AMS LAMP grant opportunities. Next slide, please. So what is LAMP? LAMP is the Local Agricultural Market Program, and LAMP supports the development, the coordination, and expansion of direct-to-consumer marketing, local and regional food markets and enterprises, and value-added agricultural products. And so there are 4 programs that fall underneath LAMP, 3 of which are underneath the Agricultural Marketing Service. So the first of which is the Farmers Market Promotion Program, which you'll hear me call it FMPP. Next, we have the Local Food Promotion Program. You'll hear me say LFPP probably a lot in this presentation. And then we have the Regional Food Systems Partnership Program, which is RFSP. There is the Value Added Producer Grant that is managed, I believe, by Rural Development, so that is not underneath AMS. And so the things that we'll cover today do not touch on that, but we do touch on FMPP, LFPP, and RFSP. RFSP, let's just stay here just for a little bit. RFSP is a little unique to the other grants in which it focuses on partnerships. FMPP and LFPP, a single eligible entity can apply. Obviously, partnerships, help an application, but the RFSP, it must be a partnership. So that is where it's distinct from the other 2 programs. We are still waiting to hear about the RFA for FY25 for this year. Without that information, I can't really go into the details of these grants since we don't have them, and I don't want to say information that might not be correct. But when that information does come out, you all will know. You are welcome to reach out to Amber or I, and we can connect you to get more information on those grants when they're finally released. Next slide, please. And so here we have some data on Alaska grant recipients, LAMP grant recipients. This dashboard here is called our LAMP Navigator. I'll drop a link in the chat later so that everyone has access to this, and hopefully those in the room can have access as well. This LAMP Navigator houses our grant data for our grantees across the country, across our grant types of FMPP, LFPP, and RFSP. And here we've selected out Alaska LAMP data for the years of 2020 to 2024. This is just one section of the LAMP Navigator. It's pretty great. You guys should look at it. So here we can see the award amount and project count by year. As you can see, thank you, Amber. In 2021, we had 4 projects awarded in Alaska. And then we can also see the funding amount there, over $1 million. I think that's probably getting up to 2, but I don't want to say that definitively without being able to look at the dashboard myself. You can see award amounts by project types. If we were there, we'd be able to hover, get more information. And then we can also see award amounts and project counts by entity type. So you can see that tribal organizations in these past 4 years receive $0.72 million. Agricultural businesses or cooperatives received about $2 million, and nonprofits received $1.23 million. Another fun aspect of the LAMP Navigator is up at the top on the right, you can see descriptions of funded projects dashboard, and that's where you can learn more about what exactly a project did, what their project description is, dive a little deeper. You can also go into the activities dashboard to learn more about their activities. All around fantastic to learn more about where money goes and learn more about grants that are in your region. You can perhaps connect to these organizations or get ideas of how you want to apply and frame a project yourself. Next slide, please. In addition to the LAMP Navigator, we also have Seeds of Success. And so Seeds of Success is a collection of story maps, so just visual storytelling web pages where we highlight accomplishments and lessons learned from Farmers Market Promotion Program and Local Food Promotion Program grant recipients. Each month, a new story is highlighted in our AMS from the Ground Up newsletter, which you should subscribe to if you're not already, and it's published on the homepage of our Seeds of Success webpage. I personally work on this, and as part of this work, I individually reach out to grantees, speak with them, learn about their work, and we have a lessons learned section of these Seeds of Success features where people share what they wish they would have known at the start of their project and how they would have done things differently. And so this can be really helpful for people who are on their own journey already of having a grant or are interested in learning about how to best manage a grant. Next slide, please. And so Southeast Alaska Watershed Coalition is a grantee that we featured as a part of Seeds of Success. They've had 3, they might even have another at this point, but at the time that we featured them in Seeds of Success, they had 3 grants, AMS grants. So they had a 2015 LFPP planning grant to conduct a feasibility study for a food hub in northern Southeast Alaska. And then they followed that up in 2016 with an implementation LFPP grant. So you can see how these grants can build across years. And this grant was to realize the outcomes of that initial feasibility study to develop a food hub network and train local food entrepreneurs. And so then after this work was done, Southeast Alaska Watershed Coalition applied yet again in 2019 for an FMPP grant to organize and support a network of farmers markets through trainings, marketing support, and development of a marketing campaign. In 2019, we know what happened the following year, 2020, COVID happened, and they did have to pivot and they created an online marketplace. And so I just want to highlight that in the sense that our grants management specialists want our grantees to succeed. When you get a grant, you're assigned a management specialist. They want you to do well. They want you to succeed. If circumstances arise and things need to be changed, our grants management specialists want to help you figure this out and do so in a way that aligns with our regulations and try to make it as easy as possible for you. So I know it's really scary when you get a ton of money from the federal government, but the people in our division really want our stakeholders and our local farmers and organizations to do well. Next slide, please. Also wanted to highlight the Alaska Longline Fishermen's Association. I think there has been some confusion in the past of whether, fishing is an eligible activity for local food grants at AMS, and they can be. So here in 2021, Alaska Longline Fishermen's Association applied for and received the 2021 RFSP Planning and Design Grant. And they did this to implement a process to establish a 10-year statewide seafood distribution and workforce development plan that includes a sustainable, non-federal financial strategy to serve Alaska's rural communities. And so sometimes eligibility is not entirely clear-cut, but we would rather you all try, reach out to us, and we can see and help out and see if your organization, your activities are eligible for an award. Next slide, please. So now I'll talk briefly, or not briefly, I will get into some AMS LAM grant resources. So throughout just my 5 years here, and I know that this feedback has been long coming throughout the years of just so much feedback of how the RFA is just so difficult to understand. It can be around 40 pages, the language, you have to have like a master's degree to understand this. Very convoluted, it's very legal-less, and we've gotten a lot of feedback that it is simply difficult to understand the RFAs, understand if someone is eligible, understand exactly what to do. And so we've gotten this feedback over the years, and we finally wanted to do something about that so that people feel more comfortable in applying and have greater ease in doing so. Next slide, please. And so as a result of all this feedback, we created a grant application TA toolkit. And so this technical assistance toolkit for LAMP includes worksheets, guides, and other resources on 6 topic areas. So we are having a toolkit on navigating LAMP grant websites, understanding the request for application, the RFA, developing a project narrative, creating a budget and budget justification, filling out an SF-270, and implementing a project post-award. Next slide, please. And so like I said, a lot of feedback on how it is very difficult to understand the RFA. And when we were developing these toolkits, talking to stakeholders, hearing a lot of just like, okay, we want something shorter, shorter. We want something that's easy to digest, understand off the bat. And so in response to that, we have created these infographics to serve as an introduction to the 6 topics that were listed in the previous slide. But that said, as much as we want something to be quick, easy, and digestible, we also want it to set people up for success for applying for our awards. So maybe a sentence or two gets someone interested, and then if they want to learn more, they can dive in a little bit deeper. So we've created this sort of like what we like to say, a Goldilocks approach to our toolkits. And so, you sit in one chair, okay, not right. You sit another, okay, this one's good. And so we have a multi-size approach to our toolkit. So we have a sort of introductory document, usually an infographic. So that introduces someone to the topic, grabs their attention, helps them identify like, if this is something that I want to do, maybe it's not. Then we have a guidance document. So this is about a mid-length document that provides some more details than the initial infographic and connects the specific sections in the RFA, but uses plain language and offers examples for clarity. Because we know that if you go straight from a short document straight into the RFA, there's going to be things lost in translation. So we've created this middle document in the middle, this guidance document to help bridge that gap. So we hope, our plan is to attract people with the infographic, lead them along the way with this mid-length guidance document, and then we send them on over to the RFA to take it home. And then for certain topics, we've also developed a tool. So that's a worksheet, template, so that people can actually use this to help develop their application or implement a funded project. We're going to review some of these toolkits, but I do want to say that the toolkits that are shared today are in draft form and are subject to change pending the updated RFA and an internal review process. And so like I said, we're still waiting on the RFA. We don't know when that's coming out, but when it does, we're going to update all of these to get them ready to go, and we'll get it out to the public. Next slide, please. So first here, we're just showing an example of our budget toolkit. This infographic shows the 8 steps that the longer toolkit will walk our user through to support them as they develop their budget. So we have these steps of organize, learn and understand budget categories, categorize and add detail, check for unallowable costs, justify, calculate, check and correct, identify and verify match, and review and finalize. So this is just a short document, has a couple of sentences for each step. It'll get someone understanding what you need to do. And then next slide, please. And then we have our guidance document here. So it's 3 pages long. It goes into the steps a little bit further. There's links here for examples and also links that will take you specifically to the RFA for that section. So you can just get a little bit of understanding, and then you can go to the RFA, cross-reference, and hopefully that helps bridge some gaps in understanding. Next slide. And so our budget, we do have a specific tool. So we have a budget organizational worksheet, and this helps kind of get your ideas together on how you want to frame a budget. And then we have the Excel workbook where you can crunch the numbers, do it correctly in a way that when you turn it in, you're not missing any pieces. Next slide. We have our post-award toolkit. So like I said, we first have our infographic. This has 7 points, very brief. Understand the grant requirements, develop your work plan, identify and assess potential barriers, establish project management systems, create a sustainability plan, start collecting data and stories now, and seek guidance when needed. Next slide. And then this takes us to our guidance document. This is a little bit longer than 3 pages, but we do want to be thorough while still being brief, finding a balance. And as you can see here, there's more to each step. And then we just go into a bit more detail, but still much shorter than an RFA. And especially in a post-award, there's not a lot of guidance that exists. And sometimes people feel like they accomplished getting a grant and now we're just left out to dry because there's so much technical assistance that you can get a grant, but then what happens after? And so we'd heard there was a lot of hesitance in applying for grants because people were scared of how to manage the money effectively afterwards. And that's why we wanted to create this post-award toolkit so that people feel comfortable in knowing that they could handle these funds appropriately and not get in trouble, because that's the feedback that we get, that people are afraid they're going to get in trouble. You're not going to get in trouble, and we're going to help you along the way. Next slide, please. And then here we have a actual tool for the post-award. And so this helps an individual identify and assess potential barriers and plan ahead to address these barriers before they become a larger problem. Next slide, please. Here we have the infographic for our RFA toolkit. And so this infographic outlines 8 critical sections in the RFA. So here we have an infographic for the local food promotion program. So first you need to understand the LFPP, and then short description of project types and eligible project activities, what priority considerations are, who eligible applicants are, about cost sharing, match requirements, letters of commitments, prepare and submit through grants.gov, and just a summary of evaluation criteria. Each of these refer to a specific section in the RFA, but far more brief. Next slide, please. And then our guidance document here just goes into a bit more detail. It's not 40 pages long as an RFA, but if someone reads about LFPP, say, oh, I'm actually interested in this from this infographic, then they can go in and learn a bit more before having to dive into the RFA. Next slide. Here is our project narrative toolkit. So the introduction infographic, we have 10 helpful steps to writing a project narrative and briefly explaining them. So understand your priority areas, what an executive summary is, your alignment and intent, your objectives, your work plan, what are your outcomes and indicators, how to define them, adaptation, dissemination, and sustainability, expertise and partners, your project management plan, and your budget. So these are 10 things that we identified would be helpful in someone writing a project narrative and are helpful to include. Next slide, please. And then our guidance document goes a little bit deeper into each of these steps so that people feel comfortable writing a narrative. I do want to say, big disclaimer, that using these toolkits does not guarantee an award from USDA in getting a LFPP or FMPP or RFSP grant, but we hope that these tools help people in the application process. Next slide, please. And so, like I said, we still don't have our RFAs for this year, but while we wait, there are things that you can do. You can register on sam.gov. Pretty good idea to do it now because you have to register at least 1 month before the grant application deadline. So you might as well just get started. You can obtain your organization's UEI. This can take up to 2 weeks, and you can create your grants.gov profile, which again can take up to 2 weeks. We've heard a lot that people are ready to apply for a grant and they've waited until the deadline because they were so busy getting their application together and making it perfect and not realize that these steps take time and they have time to process. So great opportunity now while we're just waiting for our RFAs to do this administrative side of the work so that you're ready to go. Next slide. So that's all we have for you today regarding our AMS grants, our toolkits, our RFECs, and business builder boards. And Amber and I would love to answer any questions and foster discussion.
I'm not seeing any in the Hula chat or in the Zoom chat, but if anyone in person would like to ask our wonderful speakers a question, please feel free. Thank you both so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, wish we could be there in person, but glad to present this way.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Has anyone applied to any of these grants?
Did they go,
I'm like looking directly at you, Luke. I'm sorry.
Mr. Grant?
They did, AMS doesn't specifically do the value added, but they do the other pieces of the, land grant, so the FMPP and, oh my gosh, alphabet soup, help me.
LFPP and RFSP. I know, so many letters.
But yeah, we had, one of our previous sessions, from local catch network, so we had a lot of value land recipients, and he's in the room as well, so I'm
Yeah.
picking on him. We're quiet.
Well, if there's no questions, I'm just going to assume that Amber and I are fantastic presenters and we just explained everything so clearly. So there's no room for questions.
Yes, yeah.
Apologies if this was already shared, but is there any insights on when the next round of this funding will come out?
That was not shared. So the question, I don't know if you could hear, was when the next round of funding will be available.
Unfortunately, we do not know when the next funding round will start. Typically it is around this time, but we don't know when it's going to happen. So, you know, it could be a potential opportunity to just get started and get an application ready to go. So when it does come out, you're all prepared.
Does that mean you feel pretty confident that it will be available again?
I cannot say that. But I guess I'm just an over preparer. So that's just my personality type. But it's okay if you'd like to wait and see. But no, we do not have details on if this will happen or not.
I know we have some island and remote area regional food business center TA providers in the room as well. So they're all chomping at the bit to get started on things. What about you, Sticker Bell? Have any questions? I'm gonna put you on the spot because you always have really good questions. All our sessions. You?
I think a lot of times, and this is my thing about it is like, I made this question before, and another one is a lot of your higher education is caused by Christianity. And a lot of times I think when I go to these things, like they don't talk about churches very much. And I think a lot of times we got to start really in Alaska, we got to depend a little bit more on our churches and that to push this. Because I started a FFA, a 4-H thing in my church. And I sometimes, and some of the churches and anchors are really, people are closing their churches down and locking, they're not, and I think that's one of the things is I think there's something there, a power there, there's another, that's not another avenue. I think a lot of times, especially because a lot of your denominations like Presbyterians, they're bigger denominations, Assembly's God are big denominations, and they have a lot of influence on the villages.
So we're definitely, yeah, appreciative of organizations like, Maison, which is Jewish Response to Hunger.
Yeah.
They were one of our, sponsors for this event, which is super exciting. They don't do a lot of direct support for hunger, but they do a lot of like capacity building, support. So that's definitely, alternative avenues outside of USDA.
Yeah.
But
I mean, we
I
work
like
in,
private funders can be great.
yeah, we work in local food systems. And so I think at the core of that is local communities and finding those local people and local organizations that can support your work is the most important.
Did you have a question? I can cut you off. Oh, yeah.
Yes, but, so, because just as a reminder, the LAMP grants are specifically for local, so within 400 miles of production, right, is where it needs to get, the food needs to end up to the consumer.
They are specifically local. Yes.
That's a little tricky because 400 miles and is, you know, it's 400 miles to go is quite as far in Alaska.
Yes. I am not entirely sure if that 400-mile descriptor is in the RFA itself. And that could, I don't know what the language will be in the new RFA. So that's something to just be mindful of.
Oh, okay.
And another thing I would say, like, she's got full policy. We're shirts that have like FFA on it, food policy. I did it. I started it. I do it all the time. I put stickers all over me. And my trucks are the same way. You gotta see my trucks. They're just like stickered out. I live in Anchorage and we have a little thing that says, Pebble Mine. It's a little sticker like this. It says Pebble Mine and it's got a cross in it. It's a big, and it's it's against Pebble Mine here in Alaska, which is a big market, but it was very powerful little sticker. And that's what I can tell you is just, there's other avenues you can do, like, shirts and stickers. And you go to there, everybody's got stickers. And people like stickers. And it's in shirts too, but have like FFA or food policy and
Amber, I just want to uplift what you threw in the chat, for our in-person folks who aren't looking at the chat. There's a ams.usda.gov, their website, /data/ I am a LAMP navigator for the resource that they were sharing. And I wonder if I can actually just, if we have time to throw it up on the screen for y'all. Just so that y'all can see it if you want. Unless you have another piece that you want to be sharing.
No, I think that's a great idea. Thank you.
Stop sharing. Can y'all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. And here's the dashboard that you were. Okay.
Yes. And so there's a link right up top, LAMP Navigator link, and we'll take you there.
Just in the last few minutes. Wow.
Yeah.
So this is interactive?
Yes, it's interactive. So if you scroll up a bit, you can see these filters and you can filter out. So there's a state filter, year filter, grant type. So that's how we filtered out for the Alaska grants. You do need to like scroll down again and click apply at the bottom. It's a little temperamental with that, but yeah, it's a great tool. You can click on descriptions of funded projects on the top right, and then I'll show you more about projects themselves.
pardon our island internet.
Might take, yeah, might not be for right now, but yeah, so here it's not filtered out yet, but you can see the project title, project summaries. And so once you filter, you can get some just more specific information about grants that you're interested in. And all of this information is downloadable as well.
Well, thank you both so much. I really appreciate it. I don't know if anyone has any last burning questions. We can release you to walk back to the next section, but
Thank you guys for having us.
Yes,
Really
thank
appreciate it.
you.